Tim Lefebvre,
Janek Gwizdala.
Ampeg artist.
Yeah, you're like line 6 Yamaha / the whole
Line 6,
umbrella,
just line
right?
6. I'm with this little guy right here.
Yeah, that's lovely though.
Kind of a life changer. We'll get to that in a second. I want to ramp up to that because
Okay.
and I have a few props here. Yeah. You see, they're out of shot. You don't see them right now. But if I show you this, for instance,
Oh God.
what kind of memories does that bring back?
Man, nothing but mostly good.
Nothing but mostly good.
But nothing but mostly good.
Well, what if I introduce
yeah.
this prop? Okay. So a little old school thing here. So
Wow.
So we are both known for this guy, right?
Right.
And the classic setting of our good friend and magician.
Yes.
That's where the deck of cards. Lots of props here. Jojo Mayer setting.
Yep.
The evolution of the access we have right now to the crazy stuff we have access to. Like I've seen your little touring rig that changes all the time, and the crazy pedals and the tape delays and stuff you can do on there. 20 plus years ago, that just wasn't a thing. And now it's kind of all in here to a certain extent.
Right.
How do you feel about that? Like how much do you say, okay, no, I'm sticking with the old thing. I'm sticking with the Ampeg. I'm sticking with the original stuff. And or how much can you kind of integrate like the old school analog circuits and the digital clones? Where's the line for you with that?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I do like the the more stuff I look into lately, like sometimes Chase Bliss does this with the warp vinyl. It does 3 things. Like the more punch you can get out of one pedal, like the more different multi-function stuff. You know, not that it's going to be. I don't want it to be too far off, but whenever you buy like a Univibe pedal now, right, it always has the vibrato and the Univibe. So pretty much exclusively because that's the way it was made. But man, I mean, they keep putting it in smaller and smaller boxes, and it's amazing. So there's that. I mean, I got a multi-function. I just got one of those hologram microcosms. I don't know if you messed with that yet.
I haven't.
Oh man, it's a huge learning curve, but it is unbelievable. So so it has sequences, ARPs, there's a million different things in it. I mean, I'm still an analog guy, but eventually I'm going to go to something like that. I'm probably going to get a neural DSP, the quad Cortex. Yeah. So
I'm just interested in that crossover. Everyone's got their flavor. Mine happens to be the Line 6 thing. Of course, there's the Axe FX, the neural DSP. There are so many out there. It's just that I'm not trying to be rude here, but you and I even are like the older guard. We're not 22 anymore. We're not coming on the scene, and this isn't the first thing we buy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas it is for a lot of people now. People I was talking to Adam Neely about this. He just takes a Line 6 stomp with some IRs, like some cab sims and a PA speaker. There's no amp even anymore. Insane, right? So, which is kind of an awesome segue to the fact that not only do they have the Ampeg IRs in the Line 6, but how much, I mean, you've done so much insanely varied stuff, but you've always kind of stayed in the middle of it all. And the whole amp thing is like amp de jour kind of happens on the road a lot.
Yes.
Unless you're on a bus with a trailer with your own gear. 2 things. How often does an Ampeg amp show up, regardless of whether you ask for it or not? Because like you being with a different multi-effects company, I'm with a different amp company from Ampeg, but the Ampeg does show up a lot of times because it's kind of a classic, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of those backline companies have the CL, the blackface SVT with the 410 cab. So that's what I always ask for because I know what that's going to be. There's no dice roll. It kind of sounds the same in every room too. So it's just cool. And also, I find that a lot of other amps tend to choke off. There's a lot of choke off stuff going on when you're going into the input, and the CL never does that.
So explain that. What do you mean by choke off for someone who doesn't really, know what that means?
I mean, it may be how guitar players are crazy. Sometimes bass players are crazy. Where you're playing something into the amp, and you feel like it's getting pinched a little bit, right? It's definitely a thing, and it happens, with certain brands and blah blah blah. Or you feel like it's going to explode I've blown up one CL, and out of probably hundreds that I've used. You know what I mean? So the input stage is great because it takes as much crap as you can possibly put into it. Since we use effects, it's you're always rolling the dice that for instance, I'll tell you what, the BAE lunchbox, when I used it with Tedeschi trucks, I was listening, I was like, man, this thing is doing something that I don't like. It was like squashing shit. And I was just like, it was driving me crazy. I was just like, man, that's when I started busting out the Noble. I was just like, can we just try this, please? So I can, yeah. The old school one, right?
You got props, man. I'm kind of, preempted a lot of these pedal choices here for the interview. So talk a little bit about that, because you maybe not so much on the Tedeschi Trucks gig, or more of like your rock, I hate to call it pop, but commercial popular music gigs, but maybe more so on a Krantz gig or Chris Potter, the Circuits band that I saw you live with in Holland, that you've toured a bunch with, even with that trio where Chris was playing keyboards. Can you talk about, because I've seen your pedal board, it changes a lot. The pedals aren't on a board, they're plugged in like I used to do mine, and you switch them around, you do a lot of different stuff and you explore. So talk about that gain structure going into the amp and how that pushes the amp, and where your kind of happy place is with that.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I don't bring the Noble on the road because I don't, because that, honestly, that does it too. It kind of like distorts a little bit when you're putting a ton of like subs into it. I mean, I've noticed that. And actually, because I noticed it when I did a gig with Modest Yahoo a couple years ago, I was subbing for Stu Brooks, and actually I dug it. It was fine. It's actually distortion. It's not squashing. You know what I mean?
So it is a vibe. Like you can use it to specifically do that, but you don't want that all the time, right?
Right. And that does not squash anything. So it's like, if anything, it kind of like makes things bloom a little bit. So I think that's why I like that thing so much. Especially that version with the tube sticking out. It's the best.
Yeah, this is serial number 9. Jack gave me one of the real early ones.
Let me see what number mine is. Hang on. Because I don't think it's plugged in. Let's see. I'm in number, let's see. I don't have a number on mine. Where do you see it? Where do you see yours?
It's written on the back here in like a very light Sharpie.
I mean, mine's I don't have a number on it, but it's probably in teens. I don't know who had it first, me or you, yeah. But yeah, I mean, so like, right, and like if you tour with Bob and stuff, and you bring your pedal board, but you have to pick out what's appropriate. Like, how much space do you think you're gonna have to fill?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because once Craig Taborn left the Chris Potter tour, like I kind of had to fill up a little more space.
So I was going to ask you about that. I saw you when it was quartet with Craig Taborn, and then there's suddenly this trio thing, and you're doing way more stuff.
Well, it's cool because it's not just you're able to dictate more of the improvisation stuff. That's all.
Right.
Like, and I can make it more sonic or more funk or whatever. It was just kind of one of those things where it's like it's up to you, but the more options you have available, the more helpful it is.
Right.
And on that tour, I was regretting because I didn't bring a delay pedal. I was just like,
wow, no delay pedal, and you were out there on your own.
I didn't. I felt naked.
Although I got to say, I've listened to you for 25 years or something like that, so I know your sound. But even this morning, I was like, oh, let me have a refresher. Let me listen to a few things before we talk. You're one of the few people that can really, like, I'm married to my delay pedal. If I don't have it, I'm just dying out there. You're one of the few people I hear.
Your delay game is killing.
Well,
it is.
Thanks.
No, it is.
But you're one of the few people I know, and we are few as bass players who play up the dusty end of the neck and improvise as a general rule. But you're one of the few people I know who, like I said before, that you've done all these gigs, but you stay yourself in the middle, and you can exist up the high end of the instrument without the delay pedal. That's always amazed me about your playing. There's something about the way you use the range and sort of the fatness and also the thinness of the sound at times as well. You were explaining how you play like a high riff of chords for the Black Star album in an interview I was watching, and it ended up becoming the intro. Was that right? You were playing it on the end of the song.
Yep.
And I was like, man, there was some thinness and guitar-like qualities to it, yet it still retained the essence of being a bass player. Like, what was were you using a B15 or something on that recording?
Well, actually, that was my Yamaha EM80.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Do you want to see it?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to see it.
Okay, let me
yeah.
Really fancy, some fancy computer shit here. No, actually, so what it is, sorry, it's a little heavy. It's an old 70s PA head from the 70s. So there you go. There you have it. Wow. So basically, I plug into one channel. It's got what the advantage is. It's got an incredible space echo. Like it's kind of a tank. It's a reverb. It's like a spring reverb, but it's really kind of cool. And so everything on Blackstar was done through this amp.
Wow.
So, and also like, I was able to EQ like a certain way so that it kind of brought the pick out. So
Gotcha.
yeah, and then you sort of play back towards the bridge. But yeah, so that intro was just kind of based off that. And a lot of people thought it was guitar, but it was just this.
And were you monitoring through a cab as well? Did you have that plugged into a cab?
Yeah, this was going into a B15.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I just thought, because a B15 like can be tinny. Hold on. Oh shit. And this thing has like super solid low end. Like it's got a different kind of. It's not tube, so it's old, but it's not tube. So it's got a unique kind of thing to it. And I put all kinds of shit through it, like synths and whatever. It's really cool. Yeah.
And then in terms of like driving the amp, like if I bring up something, well, okay, let's see, another sense memory exercise.
Ha ha ha. Wow.
How about these guys? So this is kind of like Krantz, Carlock, Lefebvre trio era-ish, right?
2006, I would say.
Okay, these pedals at the dump. The 55 bar that us musicians that have played thousands of gigs there lovingly refer to it as the dump. Then, of course, came this guy right here.
Yes.
So, to me, regardless of either of these three pedals I've just shown you, this thing, it pushes so much ridiculous and wide low end through an amp. Like, how do you possibly set up your amp for this? Or is it just hit and hope kind of vibe?
The CL is okay with it, actually.
Okay.
Things like other brands are not so. And a lot of it comes on the input stage. It's just like they just can't handle it.
Okay.
So it's just like that and like certain like newer amps don't get along. So it's like hopefully you don't have to deal with it.
Are you using a bunch of compression in your chain?
None.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I usually just don't. I don't go out with a compressor pedal. I use compression a lot at home, with plugins and with the UAs and. But it's just like, I never thought about it. I think maybe one tour I did, the first tour I did with Knower, because I was using that the bass microsynth from EHX.
Yes.
And it just was all over the place. If you just went and it would just make all this, but it, like a compressor on the end of it would kind of rein it in a nice way. So it was, helpful.
So are you like, is it become more of just an intuitive thing as you get to the room you're playing in? You just get on your knees and you do your mad scientist thing and make it work? Like, because this to me, like when I think about multi-effects, and I can't get away from some of my favorite pedals. I can't get away from the LC2. I can't get away from the Iron Ether stuff. So it's an amalgamation of the two worlds for me.
Yeah.
But the gain state,
Line 6 makes great stuff. Like their pedals to begin with were awesome. Like their little modular things. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about amazing. Real old school, right?
Incredible. But that's incredible, that thing.
And then this was my first kind of the M5, that whole range, the M5, M9, M13.
Yep.
John Davis hit me to this because you could do some multi-effect stuff, and the purple one of these, which I have somewhere, the filter,
the modulation
module,
one, right? Yeah.
Which was ridiculous. Jojo lent me one of those for a Nerve tour, and I never looked back. I was just an epic amount of sound. But yeah, the way it's gone now, it's just that creating effects loops. Do you run effects loops, or is everything in series when you do your stuff?
It's pretty much in series.
Okay.
I haven't. I do have a couple things where I could do that. I just never explored it. I mean, man, I don't even read the fucking instruction manuals on half this thing. I'm just like, well, let's go.
Get the pedal, turn everything up to 11 and go, right?
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, like I just got that Montreal assembly count to 5. Have you ever messed with that?
No.
Yeah, it's again, it's a hairball. Like there's a bunch of these new like delay pedals. Also the what's it called? Plodesk Electrisk Fabricat, which is another weird ass delay. And I tried to read manuals on it. It's just like it's almost incomprehensible. But the Montreal count to 5, I found a couple things on that are cool already. But it's just like, oh boy, right. But that's the fun part.
Yeah, to me, it's better to use it. I think that's the one disconnect with the digital interface for me, is that there aren't the knobs. There isn't the real-time manipulation availability. So I have to continue to, maybe there are controllers that I don't know about, MIDI controllers, which would make that a thing. but I definitely have to continue. I want to be on my knees, like you know, turning knobs and making sounds in real time, and treating it like an instrument maybe I've never played. I think that's the interesting thing for me. Like, throw the instruction manual away and just go for it and see what happens.
Right, and you know from sound checks, see, when you show up at the place, right, you get down there and you start fucking with your pedals, and it's just like, oh God, I just found a new sound, and just like, man, you know, it's like every night there's just the thing about not being trapped into some just like that exclusively, which is also awesome. I mean, sometimes I wish I had it, but you always have finding a new sound.
Absolutely. When you're working with someone like Chris Potter, you got Justin Brown in the band. Let's say post Craig Taborn, because he would kind of fall into a similar category to you in the fact that he can really manipulate his sounds. So we got Justin and Chris, who play saxophone for anyone who doesn't know, and then you're the only one who's really doing a lot of manipulation. So how did they respond to that? Do you get like, oh, that's cool, let's go after that, or some funny looks sometimes? Like, how do you find your place in the band when you have so many crazy places to go to?
Well, the thing is, you know, like I'm not necessarily like pure jazz, so like I'm not sure if that, you know, I can obviously read the tunes and function in them, but like it's not like straight down the pike jazz. Like, you know, like a guy like Matt Brewer has done the gig since. I mean, I haven't done the gig since, so maybe he was unhappy about it. I don't know. But I know it may be true, which is fine. But the thing is that I just kind of approach it like because some of the tunes are in 11 and stuff like that. So a lot of it's just barely, you know, hanging on for dear life. You know what I mean? It's just like not dropping the beat all the time. And Justin plays pretty mysteriously sometimes. He doesn't always give you the downbeats and stuff. Like, you know, when you listen to the record, you know, Eric Collins kind of laying in it, you know, like there's an idea where the stuff is, but Justin's just like out doing it, and it's just like, so you have to really be in there.
Yeah, so that was the first time I'd heard him, was there at that festival in Holland where we saw you guys, and he really has the Tony vibe going on. But super across the bar line, you know, especially
in odd meters. It's to me, like, because I'm not great at it, so it's just like. It was tough, like, but he's such a bad dude, and his feel is incredible. So, you know, like everything. And after a while of getting used to each other, it was amazing. We had done some tours with Austin Peralta. Years ago. Before Austin passed. So, like, I had already played with him, but it's just, you know, and he's, to me, he's one of the best guys out there. It's just for me, like, you know, it was me having to catch up with him. It wasn't his fault. But you know, like, the thing about that is, like, you know, okay, I'm probably the first guy. Like I know Craig Taborn got me on the gig because, you know, he wanted sounds. So, you know, Craig was just like, yeah, Tim's the sound guy. So, like, you know, I was dropping sub bombs and stuff like that, and I think they like that. I mean, it's for
me, I hadn't heard the record, I hadn't heard a previous iteration of the band, and when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is perfect combination right here. This is like such a four kind of almost different worlds working together. Now, and making the comparison between like a Chris Potter and a Donnie McCaslin, for instance, Donnie likes to let rip with some distortion and reverbs and modulation.
Right.
Like, have you guys ever like discussed like, oh, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go there? Do you think or talk about the mix in terms of the sonic space, or is that something that just happens naturally?
With Donnie or Chris?
With Donnie.
I mean, I think sometimes if it just gets too out of control, like on the tune parts, like, you know, like, because we played those tunes a lot, so like it just got more and more exploratory. So like he'd have us rein it in a little bit, but other than that, sonically now he's open to anything, because, you know, he's one of those guys who's always writing too. So like you hear influences like stuff we played on gigs, it'd be like, oh, okay, cool. You kind of write some vibes around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is great. You know, like I think that's how Fast Future started. I think that was a bass groove that.
Dude, that's a great tune. I got to play that with him. I only played with him twice, but like this time last year, actually in New York, we did a couple of gigs with Clarence Penn and Adam Rogers, which was burning. So it was great for me now to feel that from the stage, like what Donnie's vibe is. And he wasn't using any effects or pedals or anything. It was just kind of straight up for the most part. Yeah. But still, what a force of nature when he gets behind the microphone. It's like he's a real, even though it wasn't his gig, he's still a real leader in terms of the direction of where he's very, very strong conceptually, which is hard. It's hard to find in young musicians nowadays, I think, because I think everyone's maybe like looking around like, oh, who's looking at me? Where's the camera? Which video is going to go to Instagram of this? Like, and Donnie's like could not be farther from that, you know?
Yeah, he's in the music like hard.
Yeah, you know? Maybe more of a Miles vibe, you know, like conceptually, just like driving the scene, you know.
I think, you know, sometimes I think I think, you know, because that band is so exploratory, it's just like I think sometimes we have managed to make him nervous, even though
Really?
But not. Oh yeah, not while he's soloing. Like it's when we go off in Jason Linder world, it's like which a lot of times is unrelated to the tune. It's just like so like sometimes like bringing it back in is hard, but the places that band goes is like pretty fun, because it's a combination of like okay cool, everybody's shit is like razor sharp at that point. Right. It's just like yeah.
Okay, so two things about that. When you went to make Black Star, had you just come off of were you really like that razor sharp, like you say? Had you been playing a lot of gigs? Were you or were you coming from a break, or what was the situation like exactly when you made that record?
Well, I was in the midst of that was the kind of I don't know, it wasn't the beginning, but it was I was 2 years in with Tedeschi Trucks. So I was pretty invested in that. So we had to work around their that schedule and when I heard about we were going to do the Bowie thing, I was on tour with Tedeschi Trucks.
Gotcha.
Like some shed in fucking Michigan or something. So.
But it wasn't like you were in the middle of the hardcore communication connective stuff with Donnie on the road 200 dates a year or something. Okay, cool. So now the question becomes, when you were in the studio, did you ever make Bowie or anyone else nervous by where you took the music?
No, which is amazing to me. Yeah, I mean that makes me laugh because that's a great question because nobody ever asked that one first and foremost we were trying to play the songs, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So we were, I was like, okay, chorus, first chorus, but there was a couple of them that were more nutty than others, and we just kind of hey, I'm gonna go punch in 2 bars here, and I just do those. I would do OC2 bomb drops, you know what I mean? And 'Tis a Pity She's a Whore, you can hear it. It's just why, I was like, thank you. So, it's just I got an idea, but you see, you could go in and do it. But a lot of it was just play the parts that David had written and self-police, if you fucked up, they weren't going to tell you fucked up. You'd have to go fix it yourself. Wow.
So the producer wasn't on your case about fixing notes and... No,
they're vibe guys. Some rock guys are just okay, well, we'll get it in take 10. But these guys are we got it in take 2. Me and Mark got it in take 2. So but if you messed up, you just go in and say, yeah, I got to fix that or blah, blah, blah. But it was all basically whole takes and Bowie's he sends the tunes to us, we learn the tunes. And then if you're hearing something in the studio, Mark went in and also on 'Tis a Pity She's a Whore and did a he had one of those rolling drum pads and it was all these 808 sounds. And he was just went in there and just sprayed all over it. And he'll tell you this. He's oh, cool, I'm just going to throw something down. They'll edit it. And they didn't edit it at all. It's just him just
wow.
So
just going
you can hear every note. It's really funny. It's that's what I'm saying. They're just bring it all. I think they were so excited to have a different band for once. Because he recorded with the same people in eras,
Right. Yeah, for sure.
That
was an interesting way to go out,
Yeah.
What a big musical statement. I think a very brave statement. Very brave, period, regardless of the music. The whole concept of it was just super brave and very open-minded. I just wanted to know if that honesty translated all the way down to you guys, to the process, which is great to hear that it did. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason why is because, it's one of those things where nobody had to, when you go do a studio date with new people, it's you're kind of you got to feel your way around and stuff. Yeah. That playing with those guys eliminated all that. So you're automatically at least musically on a comfort level, and that helps a lot.
So some people know about the story about how it happened and the fact that Bowie came to the 55 Bar, which is this club we all know and love in New York on Christopher Street and have all played there many millions of times. Going back in the day, early days of New York, I'm pretty sure you had a rig there. Just that you,
I did.
Right? Because I'm pretty sure I used it when I first moved to New York.
It was the SWR SM400 and that Trace Elliott cabinet.
There you go. I remember the Trace Elliott cab. Is it still there?
No, I finally got it out of there 2013 or something. When I had moved to LA, I kind of went back and
okay, because mine is still there from 2004.
What is it?
In 2004, I was with Fender, way back in the day, and there's a pair of 210s and a 500 watt head or something sitting in the basement still. Crazy. I know Anthony Jackson had a rig there. Stern had his guitar rig. I guess Wayne had a guitar rig there.
Right.
There's something about that room, especially for drums. And I don't know, I'd love to hear your experience. For people who don't know this place, it's a very low ceiling. It's a capacity, I think the official fire code is 78 people. It's kind of a long, narrow room with a bar down one side, and the band is all the way in the back where the jukebox used to be in the corner. And there's something about the natural compression of that low ceiling, especially for drums. How did you feel about that for bass? I mean, I loved it. To me, that was where the Krantz sound was born of you guys, that compact live thing.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
And
it's funny, like if you notice, like in every recording you've ever heard, every live recording you've ever heard from the 55 bar, all sounds the same.
100%.
It's like just that room.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
It's a pair of stereo mics. It's not complicated, right?
Yeah. It's just that room, like even on videos and people holding up their phones.
Yep.
You know, like it's just like, you know, they put it up on Instagram stories and it's just like
you can hear it before you see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100,000%. Isn't that amazing? It's just like, wow, I know the sound of that room. Like it's so distinctive.
And it's always funny to see a band like go in there, and the opening band, you go in early with your gear, the opening band who's maybe it's their first time playing there, and they have the drums in the wrong place and the bass in the wrong place. You're like, oh, something's wrong with the sound, and you look and you're like, it's your first time. Like you've also got to know where to put each thing.
Of course, the bass has to be back in the corner with a because it turns into an amazing bass trap. Yeah, it's so great because like any sub stuff you do is just like it feels like your insides are going to come out your butt because it's just like this max.
I'm guessing the 55 bar was where you play with Krantz first.
Yeah,
and where you developed that thing with Keith, right?
Yeah.
So what was it like transitioning from this perfect room for that trio out into open air festivals where you got no feedback at all, bigger rooms? Like, how was that transition sonically?
I mean, it was hard, you know, because like just to go to a big stage, like, you know, it's still set up tight, but it was still, you know, it's still hard. But then when you hear it back, like you hear some of the, you know, because some of the stuff was videoed and blah, 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 like that, the Marciac thing, for instance.
I was just watching that 1999 Marciac this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds as good as, it sounds like we were playing the club. It doesn't sound bad. You know, it's not like the performance aspect of it got affected by it. But it was different, definitely different, you know. Like, and then the tour we did, you know, say reel it back, you know, to February, March. Like the tour we did before COVID.
Yeah.
Like we were playing bigger places and we just like, and Wayne's just like, fuck it. And he's just setting up these huge Marshalls and just going in. It's loud as fuck. It's unbelievable. To the point where actually, like, you know, Keith plays pretty loud, but Keith was just like, man, I'm just bashing my brains out here. So
even Keith said that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Keith.
He is loud.
He's pretty loud. I mean, he's a warm loud though. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
no,
it's
totally.
Never, yeah.
Because it's not a tight kick drum and smashy cymbals. It's a lush, wider sound. Yeah.
Like instant tinnitus. He's not that kind of guy. I mean, I still got it from him, but only because, you know. Well, you know, like I didn't wear earplugs half the time because it was way too frustrating. But you know, he had those giant Constantinople cymbals.
Yeah.
You know, all like 3 of them around the drum set. So like I'd have one right in my ear, and when he was riding, it was just like, you know, when we were going in, it was just like, wow. I would be like, woo, at the end of the night.
Were you on in-ear monitors when you were doing Trucks Band?
At the end, yes.
And how about Black Crows? I guess you didn't get to do that many shows yet with them, right? But will you be on the bigger tour on in-ears, like for a show like that?
Yeah, I'm going to try. I mean, it's so loud. I don't even, you know, it didn't even help, honestly. Like, and these are like sort of, they're like, you know, the ones without ambient. Yeah. It's supposed to block out a ton of sound. It's just like, whew, it's so loud. It's just like, woo.
So as much as like I played, you know, I think it was over 400 gigs at the 55 bar with Mike Stern, which would get loud. Let's face it. Yeah. Like he's not Mr. Quiet. He's Mr. Stereo, big Yamaha cabinet, and all the. You'd be taking all those
melodic solos like a bad motherfucker. Woo, man.
Well, so
incredible.
I always wanted to wear earplugs or some kind of filters or in-ears or something. I could never do it, especially on improvised music, especially where there was a ride cymbal and any kind of walking involved. Like, where's your cutoff point with that?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's a good one. I don't know. I mean, in an acoustic setting, you can get away with it, I suppose. I mean, you know, 55 bar, but 55 bar is pretty loud. So, like, you know, I don't know. I mean, you just kind of like either do it or you don't, you know. A lot of nights I didn't do it. A lot of nights I did. So, you know, with the Trucks Band, like, you know, I kept on having to turn down on stage, and to the point where I just couldn't. You know, I was just ripping my hands apart. So I was just like, I can't keep doing this.
Turning yourself down or turning the rest of the band down in the mix?
No, turning. They turn on stage. You know, like I started off with the fridge, with the Ampeg SVT fridge,
right?
And then I got knocked down to a 410, and then it was just like to the point where I had to be standing on on one of those tech amp vibrators, you know.
No way.
Floor vibrator. Yeah, I was standing on one of those just to fool myself into feeling subs, you know. Which was fun. It was cool. It was fine. You know, occasionally I like almost trip on it, but other than that, it was.
I mean, when
helpful.
I picture that gig with Derek and Susan out front, like stacks of guitar amps and 2 drummers. I mean, 2 drummers and a double stack.
And I was the problem.
And you would have.
Yeah. Well, you know what? To their, you know, in their defense, I mean, they were standing up at the PA level. Like,
Yeah.
you know, the PA was like kind of parallel to them.
Yeah.
So like they were kind of hearing the subs from the PA. So like if it was like at all rambunctious from my corner, you know, I was just like, please turn down. I was just like, fine. But it wasn't, you know. But you know, like the problem was like the reason why I went to in-ears because you know, like they would record every show and sometimes the front of house guy would just like play Midnight in Harlem or something over the PA to tune the PA from hall to hall. So like, you know, sometimes it'd solo my tracks and it'd just be sounding like me, you know, basically taking a wrench to the strings and go, you know, it was
Just
like that because I was
overplaying.
just playing just to be heard, right? It was just
Wow.
one of those things. I was like, I can't have this going out into the universe anymore. I just can't.
Right.
It's a total misrepresentation.
Were
You
you
know what I mean?
mic'd? Were you miking the cabinet or a combination
Yeah.
of both?
Yep, but it still sounded like shit. So, I mean, you know, just because of the touch. If the touch was totally wrong, you
Sure.
know. And once I went to in-ears, it got way better. Like, you know, okay, cool. I don't sound like a fool every night. You know,
Because you had something to push against at least, rather than just open air.
Yeah, well, you know, like you know, it is in the studio. You can really get your touch and your sonic sound together, like in your cans, and it's way more helpful to have that than not.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the studio, I mean, that's always been a massive issue for me. Like, A, what kind of music are you recording? B, do you have the space to have an amp and still have separation as a bass player?
Right.
The answer is more often than not in my career been no. It's like, shut up, sit in the corner, go in that little booth and put some headphones on. And then you're stuck with, you know, with some like AKGs of varying quality, you know.
Yes.
Normally one side is broken and the other's cutting in and out, and you're
That
not
can't
even
handle low end either.
can't handle low end. You're not even in the same
Yeah.
room as the drums, so you don't hear anything. You don't hear a kick drum. God forbid you
Right.
actually hear a groove or feel a groove. More importantly,
Right.
did you record with Derek and Susan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did 3 records.
And
a
how was
live
that?
one.
Was that more of an old school band vibe of all being like doing master takes with a whole band and all being in the studio at the same time?
Mostly the rhythm section stuff. Yes.
Okay.
So it was like Derek, Sue. Sue would do like, I don't know if she would do keepers necessarily, but she'd be in like a little room isolated, and her, and then, you know, but basically we're all in the same room. And then the B3 amp was isolated in some place, you know, B3 and the
Right.
clav amp.
I
And the
keep
rest of it
forgetting how
was-
gargantuan that band is. Horns and B3
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
insane.
But the horns were never there. It was always, you know,
Okay.
rhythm section first.
And
So-
with the Black Crows, is that a little bit of a more stripped down kind of thing compared to Derek and Susan? Do you find you have a bigger space to work with, sonically speaking?
I don't know if it's that. I mean, you know, like honestly, it's like I think the number one assignment in that band is to just play basically in the ballpark of the parts that are on the records.
Okay.
Right. So like I'm not really thinking about that so much, but you know, like every time I did something fun, you know, like Chris Robinson would turn, he'd be like, you know,
Okay.
because he just loves that shit. So like, you know, every time I do something fun, you know, yeah, you know, I'm just carving out spaces where I can be myself, you know, like sort of it. And I don't, because basically some of the grooves, you know, it's just rock and roll stuff. So like, I'm just kind of like trying to do stuff on one string and I'm just trying to keep it in the ballpark of me. You know what I mean? Like it literally could be anybody, but I want to give it some sauce. Like this, there's some 12/8 stuff that they did back in, you know, like, you know, Shake Your Moneymaker
Yep.
stuff. And like, just some of those bass lines to me needed some updating. So like, it's okay, cool. Let's do some more. Well, just, you know, like rock and roll guys, they do it rock and roll style. And Chris and Rich are big R&B guys. So like, you know, for me to mold it back towards like a little bit more Otis Redding, like Redding, or, you know, like you just kind of make it a little hipper R&B wise,
Yeah.
like instead of the rock and roll touch. I think that stuff helps. Like that's the only, like I would inject that stuff, but I wouldn't like get any more crazy than that. You know, it's just updating. That's all I would call it.
Right. And
Yeah.
now you're like, you kind of have the bass world at your fingertips, I would say.
Look who's talking.
No, come on. I'm like,
Seriously.
Let me finish the point though. Like,
Okay.
just in terms of the one thing you can't buy, the one thing you can't learn, which is experience, right? It's like as we talk here and we talk about multi-effects and we talk about analog circuitry and we talk about amps and how to balance this and compression and blah blah blah, but whatever. It's like you can listen to an interview like this all day long, but it'll still never teach you what it is to go on a sound check and troubleshoot a situation for a room you've never played in before.
Right.
Like, was there a point where you felt like, okay, I have enough experience in the bank. I'm like, I feel kind of invincible now, or at least I can deal with any situation. Do you remember a moment like that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of like, I'll admit, like the 90s and 2000s, like in the early 2000s, like I was still in the point where I was just kind of like developing, but it wasn't like, oh, I want to find my sound. I was just like trying not to suck, to try to hang in with the groups I was playing with. No, really, when we did the Jojo Mayer stuff, it's just like, like Jojo's mastery of that stuff is incredible. So like, I was just trying to like, I'm playing this dumb fretless, just fall down stuff. I'm just like, well, like Janek's a monster at that stuff. So like, that made me feel like, okay, well, all right, and then just trying to hang on for dear life with Krantz, like in Keith, it was just like, those guys were incredible. They were definitely better than me back then. So I just kind of like was hanging on for dear life.
Was it a conscious decision or a conscious effort to just surround yourself with the best musicians possible to push yourself?
No, it was just finding me. I just wound up on stuff. It wasn't like I had no goals in mind. It was just like,
right.
I don't even know how I wound up subbing on SNL. It's just like, it just happened one day and it went well for many years. And then it didn't, but it's like any gig. But the thing is like, kind of recent, like maybe, I know this is going to sound crazy, but maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I started owning it a little bit. Okay, cool.
That's what I was looking for, man. Like the moment, where you're like, okay. And it's not like an arrogance, right? It's just like an extra boost of confidence, perhaps.
Yeah. It's like when somebody throws you something to record at home, right? You just go, wait, okay, I want you to do this. Like they're not even specific anymore. It's just kind of like, and then you kind of, some of it's throwing spaghetti at the wall. You throw 3 takes of spaghetti at the wall, and it's like, yeah, it's great, thanks. And they're like, okay. Right. I mean, you want to make sure it's great. I mean, you don't want to have any mistakes in there and stuff. But like a lot of it's just trying to find the right vibe. But like I've recently had a very high success rate at that, and I'm sure you too. It's just like
I mean, I will say recently I've had to, out of sheer necessity, up my home recording game. Period. And through that learn a bunch of things. And I find myself in those moments like, if I'm ever in a moment of doubt, it's not long before a memory of like being on stage with Jojo reappears, or being on stage in a really important moment where I solved a problem, like a musically life-changing problem. Right. Like when you think back to like, Izzy Bar and Shine and all those like kind of relentless hours on stage, like not short sets. We're talking about like electronic dance music sets. There must have been things that happened there where you were like, oh, so this is how that works.
Occasionally, yeah. Yep. I would try, I'd bring in like a tremolo pedal and be like, oh, cool. And then, like putting things on and off rhythmically, blah, blah, blah. Just find something every night. And those are the, those are the things are like, that's why like people will say that, you and I are fearless improvisers, because we sat there for an hour and a half with no idea what we're going to do and just played and we just did it. You know 100%. What I mean? And people liked it. So like, I don't give a shit now. Like, like if you want to do an improv gig, great. We're going, I'm glad to do that because I know it'll, yeah, sure, many people don't like it, but I don't care. It's a real thing, and it's coming from an honest place, and we know what we're doing with it,
Yeah,
so.
I remember when the month you moved to New York and you came over to my old place in Hollywood, sat on the couch, we talked like this a little bit, and I came out that night because I wanted a little B-roll for the interview. I came out to the Spud, and you were playing, I think, with Babco, Tos Panos. You were like a kind of a typical like potato fusion gig, right?
Right.
I still have. I've got to find that footage because it makes me cry with laughter to this day. Like your first baked potato gig in town, and it sounds like it's your first gig with Krantz at the 55 bar in like in the 90s, because you're like dropping frequency analyzer bombs and fucking like low pass filtering to the point of the system just dying. And everyone's looking around like the very LA guys, and Babco's hip. They're all hip guys, but they're definitely looking around like, oh. Yeah, we don't do this very much. Like what's they like a little bit of appreciation, but at the same time confusion. And I was like, oh, Tim doesn't care, and I love that. Like it doesn't matter New York, LA, Nebraska. It doesn't matter where you live. Still the same person behind the music, which I always appreciated. And I think that's
in LA,
harder to do these days, though.
Yeah, I mean in LA when you're in the recording studio, you can't do that.
No, not in the recording studio, but. I think it's a little harder to do these days in terms of people being accepting of that, or even being on the level to be able to understand it and then interact with it, which is kind of disturbing to me. Like it seems like there's been a little bit of a break in the lineage in the last 15 years of fearlessness. Yeah. And that fearlessness has become fear, and the fear of, do I have enough likes and subscribers and follows and, who's looking at me? Whereas like people of my generation, your generation, like Binny and Adam Rogers and Craig Taborn, and like all the cats we talk about, it was more like head down and just be in it, regardless of the outcome. I think we were all happy with the outcome, regardless of what it was. Right. And that's a massive shift I see now, that it's kind of not like that anymore.
No, I agree with you. I think like it's breeding a bunch of homogeneity. Is that the right word? I think it is. Yeah, I mean, I think you're 100%. I agree with that 1,000%. But what are you going to do? It's like,
sure.
I think people want to get gigs, and so they look at people who are doing stuff and they do what they're doing to get gigs. You know what I mean? And that's fine. I mean, I think it's what you got to do. But it's breeding this whole thing of like, there's a couple of guys that are pretty great, like even for their age, but and sort of original sounding. Like nobody who's 22 is really original sounding yet. You know what I mean?
No. Although, have you heard of Ronnie Caspi?
No.
I think she's about maybe 22, just out of Berkeley, from Israel. She's been playing in Avishai Cohen, the bass players trio.
Oh wow!
Kind of out of the Mark Juliana vibe, but like 22 years old or something like that, and sounds.
Oh, is this a dude?
No. It's a girl.
It's a girl.
Yeah.
Oh, because I saw somebody else playing with
no, she sounds absolutely ridiculous. It was like faith in humanity was just starting to be restored. Like maybe there's a renaissance of people listening to and checking out the right stuff, the depth in the music again. Do you think it will turn around? Do you think there will be sort of a dip in how important social media and all that is in our lives as musicians?
Yeah. Not anytime soon, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
okay.
And I was speaking more of the homogeneity in the bass world. That's all. I'm not.
Okay.
I think you and I are mavericks, and it's just like, okay, cool. Like there's schools of people trying to, follow in our footsteps, kind of, sort of. But then the people I like the best are the ones who don't, and they just don't even know what the hell they're doing, and they're just out there throwing it out there. It's great. Oh no, there's plenty of there's plenty of other instrumentals that are amazing. I can't think of any offhand, but
also like the geography thing as well, the location thing. It used to be quite specific to New York, 80s, 90s, maybe early 2000s, but now it seems to be so global. Yeah. Maybe that's a positive thing about the ease of communication these days and the access to information.
Yeah. I mean, one of the best. Yeah, sorry. I mean, one of the best piano players I know in the world is Mikael Walny from. He lives in Berlin now. Oh no, he lives in Dresden now. But he's a kid from Frankfurt.
Okay.
He's in his mid 30s, but this guy is unreal. I mean, he's been like.
Wow, I don't know him. I got to check him out. That's awesome.
Yeah, I did a couple records on Upright actually, which is scary. I mean, and we just didn't. Okay, for instance, like last year before COVID struck, I was in Berlin and we did he put together this band and everybody's just improvising, and we played at the A Train for 4 nights. And recorded it, and it's like some other new shit. I don't even, it's like electronics and acoustics, and it's just like, it's pretty. I mean, someone will always find a reference for it, but I didn't. So I just think it's really neat that.
And how, like, bringing up acoustic, bringing up Upright there, how much do you differentiate your setup for that as well? Because you use effects with Upright just the same as you do electric, right?
Sort of like back in the day when I was playing with Volney, I was touring before I got the Tedeschi trucks because I was touring with him a lot. So I was bringing out the MXR. What's that delay called? The green delay.
Carbon copy.
Yeah, carbon copy. So I just used to bring that and just do weird stuff with that. I mean, that was it. I mean,
okay. Mic or DI, mic or pickup. What's your vibe? Both.
Both. Yeah. I mean, and every bass was borrowed, so it was just like every day was like relearning the bass. So
damn. So when you're on the road as an upright bass player, something I have never done and will never do. Not only are you sometimes amp de jour, but you're bass de jour as well.
Yeah. Right.
Holy crap.
Well, that was the problem. That was the Chris Bodie, era. I used to get I used to try to get the SWR Strawberry Blonde.
Okay.
As its own amp for the upright, and then whatever 410 cabinet.
Yeah.
Actually, I wound up with the SVT4 Pro a lot.
Oh yeah.
So but that was one of the ones I was blowing up all the time.
With the upright.
No, just with the electric.
Okay.
Yeah, that had some problems handling power. The CL was vastly superior.
Okay.
But and Ampeg will tell you that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The SVT4 Pro is not their best thing. It was definitely fun. Actually, it's good sounding. It's just it couldn't handle a lot of.
It's not the most powerful rig out there.
Yeah, because I was using an active my Calla Hill 5, and just like when I popped the B string pretty hard, it was just the lights would start blinking and it would go off. I was like, oh no.
And when do you make the choice to like get into the refrigerator vibe, like the 810 and like the real mega cabinets? Is there a certain venue size where you're like, all right, I got to do it now, or is it a big theater, a small arena? Like, what is that for you?
I mean, I think it's just that's just what is the accepted thing. I'm honestly, my next move. I mean, I'm going to use I have a 78 SVT, amp, which is just butter, and so I love that thing so much. But I'm going to try 12s.
Okay.
On the next big tours.
That's what I'm doing.
Two 12 cabinets.
Yep.
Two 12 cabinets. Like I'm going to have 2 stacks going.
Nice.
So, yeah, I think it's kind of like more my speed. You can handle a little more subs, and you can kind of pound it a little harder. The thing about the refrigerator is just like it just throws a lot of loud low mids at me instead of like subs. Like I like to feel the bottom a little more than those things give you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why I like 410s better, because even though it's doing the same things, I think throwing sound a different way, but like the 410, like because of the 55 bar, you feel it at your knees.
Yeah.
And you just felt the low end.
Were you on the floor or were you up on the milk crate?
Floor.
Floor, yeah.
Yeah.
See, Stern would always make me first of all, Stern would always make me play 10s, which I hate. I like 12s. And then he would always make me put it up on the milk crate, which took all of the low end out of the floor. And so the first time I went down there with some 12s, and I just kind of got there early, set it up, and then covered it all. And he turned around, hey man, that sounds really good. And I whipped it away, and it was 2 12s on the floor.
There you go. Victory.
Victory was had by all.
That's right.
Dude, we could be here for 8 hours talking about this shit.
We could literally do this for I know, you're 100% right.
You know what I mean? Like, because we're finding lane after lane after lane, but for the sake of our audience and keeping it succinct, I think we hit a bunch of great stuff. I hope the information resonates with people watching. I hope the gear nerds, which we both are at the end of the day, as well as musicians,
100%.
I hope the gear nerds were satisfied, as well as the non-gear nerds and the musicians. And I hope we continue to help show people what it is to be a musician. Bass players end up being like musicians because we do so much different stuff normally. You know what I mean?
Right. And I'm just flattered I'm getting interviewed by one of the world's great bass players. You
come
are
on, man.
100%. No,
well,
there's like a small tip of the iceberg, and you're up there. It's like, not really, man. I mean, and plus you're showing people like how to do stuff. It's like what you're doing is really, really great. So,
well, I appreciate that, man. And hopefully we both get to continue to do that a lot more. And hopefully we can stick a needle in our arm, get a vaccine, and get out there. Yes, not 1980 style needle in the arm, but like 2021 needle in the arm to actually.
We'll take that too.
Yeah. Okay. On that bombshell, shit is over, man. It's great to see you, man. Thanks, dude. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.